You give answers that later a court deems aren't true, and then at the end of the day, you won't criticize an obvious shakedown when it's directly in front of us, and it appears as though you're whitewashing the conduct of corrupt people.
Respectfully, Congressman, in your home state of Florida, the number of people applying to come work for us and devote their lives working for us is up over 100%.
We're deeply proud of them, and they deserve better than you.
Matt Gaetz announced yesterday. This was a shock move to many. This was a shock move because Matt Gaetz wasn't on anybody's list. And I want to talk about very briefly what we've heard over the last 24 hours internally from those close to President Trump about this decision and this move. Because it is genius in 3 different ways. We're going to talk about every single one of them exclusively. And we're going to describe what the future holds for a Matt Gaetz appointment as Attorney General. Let's begin. Matt Gaetz, and we have an entire compilation of Matt Gaetz owning the deep state. We'll get to it. But I want to, off the top here, tell you the breaking news, all right? We can pop up, feel free to put up the article about Matt Gaetz' selection. Bold move! Just hours after Trump made his shock cabinet pick for Attorney General, Matt Gaetz resigns from Congress. Says, I'm out. Burn the ships. I'm going in, right? It's a genius move. Normally, everybody keeps their position, right? Like Marco Rubio, Secretary of State nominee, he's staying in the Senate until he's confirmed, right? Laura Trump won't be able to fill that seat until Marco Rubio is confirmed and he's out of that seat, vacates it. We have news on the Laura Trump stuff in just a moment. But I want to talk about Matt Gaetz. I want to talk about the genius of this, and I want to break down what we've heard internally and explain why this is such a genius move. There is no greater hive of scum and villainy than the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. It's a place for sneering Democrat superdonor lawyers to do around, right, and then to scoot on off to 7- and 8-figure salaries at major law firms. It is effectively a Democrat super nexus of lawfare against Republicans. Can you put up the J.D. Vance tweet, please? That tweet last night was just sent me. It's perfect J.D. Vance tweet on Matt Gaetz' nomination. So, in order to end that system, and that system broke all of Donald Trump's last attorney generals. All of Donald Trump's last attorney generals were crippled and withered by that supercell of Democrat lawyers. The DOJ is just this impenetrable iron dome of Democrat activism and vicious, seething, venomous lawfare. Truly a pit of snakes and vipers. You ever seen Raiders of the Lost Ark? Indiana Jones, over the tomb, right, inside of Egypt, and he's sitting there and he's looking down, it's just snakes everywhere. That's it. That's what Trump does when he lifts up the stones and he looks down into the DOJ. J.D. Vance. The main issue with Matt Gaetz is that he used his office to persecute his political opposition and authorized federal agents to harass parents who were peacefully protesting at school board meetings. Oh, wait, actually, that's Merrick Garland, the current Attorney General. It's a perfect tweet, okay? Let's call it what it is. It's a perfect tweet. 300,000 likes, 58,000 reposts, 10 million views. Well done, J.D. Vance. But how do they get away with it? How does Merrick Garland get away with raiding Donald Trump, with ordering deadly force to raid Donald Trump? How does he get away with it? Because the system is built on the backbone of left-wing activism. It is designed to foment and to attack like an antibody anybody who is a populist, who's a Republican, who supports President Trump. That is the nature of the system. By appointing Matt Gaetz to be Attorney General, the head of that system, what you are doing is you are completely realigning a system that is built on zeros into ones. You flip the system on its head. Think about it in binary terms. If there's only ones and zeros in binary code, you can only be one or the other. If the top man inside of your system is not your number, how much quicker are you likely to self-deport, to eject out of that system? Matt Gaetz is seen as Florida man to these people. They are disgusted by him. They are sickened by his overt populist nature, by the fact that he stands against the machine. He's a dismantler of machines. He breaks the wheel. He's not part of the wheel. He breaks the wheel. They view him as lowbrow, as somebody who they are better than, because he didn't work at like these white shoe law firms, right, that they all worked at. They are disgusted by his very presence. If you put somebody like that as the boss of these people, then they'll leave. It's a self-cleaning mechanism. They're already starting to leave. We have this Politico article about how DOJ is beginning to clean itself. They're already terrified. They're already planning. They're already heading for the doors. Trump sending this signal beyond the confirmation of Matt Gaetz, which will happen, by the way. Beyond the confirmation of Matt Gaetz, Trump simply sending this signal that they're done effing around inside of this system will cause so many that are parasitic rot inside of our DOJ to simply resign. And you're welcome to do that. It's actually quite hard to fire federal workers, the ones who are there as careers, not as politicos. The political workers can be fired, but the careers get in there and they get little unions, they get protections, they get lawyers. But they can resign at any time. They can leave at any time. The prospect of having Matt Gaetz be their boss and having to answer to him is like smelling salts for these people. It's like cross to a vampire, like holy water on a demon. They get burned by it. Their smug elitism will not allow them to answer to somebody like Matt Gaetz. And so on its face, prima facie, this is a genius move because it will expedite the exodus out of the DOJ. Here's the article. Trump's return has some of the Justice Department heading for the exits. In this article, they talk about how lawyers at the DOJ are shaking with fear, are seething with rage. This is terminology used, are terrified. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how you begin the cleaning of the system. Let them do the job for you. Let them eject. That's step number one, okay? Step number two with Matt Gaetz. Moving down the line as to why this is a genius pick. Matt Gaetz has been the victim of government espionage, government spying. He has been the victim of an entrapment scheme that has been well documented, where agents of the FBI have attempted to extort Matt Gaetz, extort Matt Gaetz and his family for tens of millions of dollars in order to avoid prosecution of himself and his family. If this sounds familiar, well, it's exactly what they did to Trump. Different pieces on the chessboard, same play. Reminder, Trump had zero legal problems before he decided to run for president. When Trump decided to run for president in late November of 2022, soon after, you were getting mugshots, charges, press conferences all around the country. We have it on very good authority that President Trump there were signals to President Trump that if he decided not to run for president, he'd just go off and be like a billionaire on his beaches for the rest of his life. Play golf in peace. No, nothing will happen to you. They did the same thing to Matt Gaetz. This is what they've done to Matt. And is it not the victims of the system, the victims of a broken system that are the best at reforming it because of the chip on their shoulder? Businessman pleads guilty to $25 million extortion attempt against Matt Gaetz and his family. This was an operation run by the FBI. This was an operation ordered by the enemies of Matt Gaetz inside of the federal government. And now Matt Gaetz is going to be their boss. How glorious is that? What a wonderful way to make sure that the wheel is broken than to have a personal vendetta. Right? Yeah. Think about every great superhero or villain origin story, right? Childhood trauma. This is it. This is the trauma. Matt Gaetz is a victim, much like Donald Trump. So you have a shared burden with both of them. A shared grudge that you wouldn't have with a Jeff Sessions or, God forbid, a Bill Barr, right? These people who acted against Donald Trump. They're angry at the Matt Gaetz pick. They're seething. They're screaming like demons at the Matt Gaetz pick because they know that they have no leverage. They know that this is an actual legitimate outsider who they have attempted through illegal means. This is illegal means. ALX, what are the charges here? There were charges brought against these pseudo agents of the government in their attempts to extort Matt Gaetz. They illegally tried to destroy Matt Gaetz' family. It is by every definition, from a landscape perspective, from a wartime perspective, this is precisely what they did to Donald Trump. Matt Gaetz has the exact same axe to grind. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a genius move for a third reason. The tertiary reason why this is genius is because it takes all the heat off of the other choices. Now that Trump has chosen Matt Gaetz, everybody else gets through the Senate with flying colors. I'm not saying that he's a patsy or anything, but I'm saying that all of the anger and rage of the machine will be trained on Matt, which he's used to and he's built for. Matt Gaetz is a friend of the show. He did an hour with us live when we had evacuated from the hurricane because we were in his district. He just came over and we chatted live. Those clips are going thermonuclear because Matt Gaetz talked about Epstein, UFOs. Matt Gaetz talked about the Diddy list. And guess what? As AG, he'd be in charge of all of it. The FBI answers to the Attorney General. The FBI has all the Epstein tapes. They have the Diddy list. They have all the videos. They have it all. It's all sitting there in a locked box. And Matt Gaetz would be in charge of it all. Well, that's interesting. So the people accusing Matt Gaetz of doing untoward things, turns out that they're the ones who are guilty of what they're accusing Matt Gaetz of. Isn't that interesting? The genius move is that now this effectively opens up the floodgates for Trump, for every single Trump pick, as Matt Gaetz will be the man standing out front, absorbing all of the wrath and all of the all of the fire, rage, and hatred of the machine. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's a perfect strategy. So that's 1, 2, 3 as to why Matt Gaetz is a really, really smart pick. Here's a warning, a bit of a warning from our show before we jump into some of the media ecosystem and how they're responding to this. All of the right people are furious about this. And all of the right people are celebrating this. This is how we looked at the J.D. Vance pick. We don't pretend to be the closest friends with J.D. Vance. What we told you at the time of the J.D. Vance pick when we were live at the RNC was all of the right people are on his side, right? I mean, he was a very young senator. He'd been on the show, but we didn't have any time to really have a personal connection with J.D., right? And so what we said was all of the right people are backing him. Don Jr. came on the program, Tucker, Bongino, Charlie, David Sachs, Elon Musk, all of those people backed JD. So we said, done. That's all we need, right? Done. All the right people are backing Matt Gaetz. All of the wrong people are seething with rage, much like they did with JD, over Matt Gaetz. And just a quick, fascinating little anecdote here. According to many exit polls, JD Vance was seen as the most net positive of anybody running on any presidential ticket this year. Remember when they called him weird? Or when they said it was the dumbest pick ever? That was all a psyop. It wasn't real. JD Vance, according to exit polling and according to scientific, algorithmic data and information collection from American voters, was seen as the largest net positive American politician running on any ticket this year. So it was all a psyop. It wasn't real. They're running the same operation against Gaetz for the same reason, actually. They're terrified of the effectiveness of this man. So those are the top 3 reasons why Matt Gaetz is a genius pick. Self-cleaning mechanism at the DOJ, just the fact that Trump would even dare put someone like Matt Gaetz in charge, a 1 in charge of a bunch of zeros, the binary system collapses. It's like a computer program. The entire thing collapses. They all self-deport, right? It's a genius move. Tom Homan. They're going to do the same thing with welfare sub-programs. Once you cut off the welfare programs, then criminal aliens, many of them, will self-deport. That's a matter of fact. They don't speak the language of the nation. They don't have skill. They have no skilled labor. They'll self-deport. It becomes a very easy process. Matt Gaetz would be the equivalent of cutting off the welfare programs at the DOJ. Number 2, Matt Gaetz is somebody who obviously is going to absorb so much of the fire that would be trained on other Donald Trump appointees. And he's going to open up the floodgates for MAGA to wash into the system. This is precisely why this is a genius pick, but moving down the line. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are a United States Senator and you just had a election last week, Owen, can you put that up, Klein? I just want to give you guys, we'll always back up everything we say here with evidence. We'll show you the hard data and the hard information. A remarkable CNN exit poll found that JD Vance is actually the most popular man on a presidential ticket this year. After he was selected as VP, and there's the actual favorables and unfavorables. Yeah, please. After he was selected as VP nominee in an absolute barrage of media attacks smeared him, creating poor favorability ratings initially, his amazing campaign performance sent those numbers soaring back on his way to becoming now one of the most popular politicians in America. So JD Vance voted, according to our sources, for Tim Scott yesterday in the Senate leadership race. Yet, nonetheless, the swamp scum were able to snake in their candidate in John Thune. You have heard I have said my piece on it. I will say this from a perspective of this program. President Trump didn't weigh in on this race. He didn't say you must vote Scott. President Trump stepped back, and that we're going to defer, quite frankly, to that move, and say, all right, if you're stepping back, then there are other systems at play here. So let's let it play out. But we'll be watching. And here's one of the things we're going to be watching. And this is Donald Trump calling their bluff. So as soon as the leadership vote happened and John Thune got it on the 3rd ballot, John Thune calls Trump, and Trump says, you son of a bitch, you better be on board with my appointments and you better be ready to rock. I want recess appointments. I want them now. John Thune says, yes, of course. Otherwise, expect a Truth Social post about how you're a rhino. And we will destroy. We will primary you, and we will run you out of town. We now have the muscle and the capacity and the money to do it. It's no longer idle threats. We can actually do these things now. It's really exciting. So that phone call happens, and as soon as Thune says, yes, totally, we're on board, click. Then the next thing, Trump goes, okay, send Matt Gaetz. Boom, Matt Gaetz. Most important appointment. Here you go. You better get ready. So John Thune pledges his fealty to the Trump appointments, and then Trump goes, all right, here we go. Here's going to be the most important and consequential appointment. We have the records of every single senator, and many of them Republican, voting to confirm Merrick Garland, voting to confirm Alejandro Mayorkas. We have you on the record, scum. There are dozens of Republican senators, the squishy ones, right? Murkowski, Collins, McConnell. There are dozens of Republican senators who voted for Merrick Garland. Do you know this? Pop up the votes. We have them. There are dozens of Republican senators who voted for Alejandro Mayorkas, somebody who's going to be imprisoned by the end of all of this as the world's greatest human smuggler. Republican senators said, yes, absolutely, we love you. So the Matt Gaetz vote alone will show you exactly who needs to be ripped out root and stem from the Republican Senate. Because right now you already have like senators mulling like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure. So there's some reports that maybe there's going to be like at least 10 Republican senators that'll vote against Gaetz. You're already seeing it. So it's you know, it's pretty unique. Here we go. Here's the list. Here are all the Republican senators who voted for Merrick Garland, same guy who ordered the deadly raids on Mar-a-Lago. And I say deadly because they had authorized use. They had kill orders. So these senators voted for Merrick Garland. How are you possibly going to go home to your very Republican red states and explain how you voted for Merrick Garland but against Matt Gaetz? It's not possible. It's not tenable. So this is the last vote of your political career if you stand against President Trump's Attorney General. And a final word on this. What President Trump needs is somebody who's going to be like a neural link with him. That's why we sort of set up like the lawfare and the attacks against Matt and his family. Like that's why we talk about this, is because you need to have the same motivations. Famously, Eric Holder called himself the wingman of Barack Obama. You must know that your attorney general is going to share your same gut. They'll get you, right? They'll come after you like Nixon if you're on the phone telling Matt Gaetz what to do and who to prosecute. Okay? They'll come after you. It's a no-no. Libs do it all the time. Joe Biden clearly did it day and night. But it's not something we recommend, okay? You're technically not supposed to do that. And so you have to have somebody that has the same fire in their belly, the same gunpowder in their gut as you do. And that's Matt Gaetz. Listen, we've seen what happens when you have like a limp-wristed, cocky Jeff Sessions in there who recused himself without even seeing the evidence of Russiagate. They literally were able to psyop Jeff Sessions into recusal of the Russiagate hoax without even seeing any evidence. That's weakness. Of course, Bill Barr is just a grotesque organ of the superstate and should never be trusted ever again, based on what he did with President Trump, along with Pompeo, Nikki Haley. None of these people will be in the next administration, thank God. Trump learned his lessons, and that's what you get is Matt Gaetz, a neural link. On this program, we have one. It's called ALX AI. We often talk about our executive producer, ALX. He and I have worked together for so long, we literally have the exact same thoughts. Okay? It's weird. It's what happens when you work with somebody. It's what happens when you have the same motivations and you work on and build systems and processes together. Is it just click, right? And so this is a Donald Trump version of that inside of justice. And that's what you want, right? Because trust me, the next impeachment hoax will be, oh, did Donald Trump pick up his phone and call Matt Gaetz and say, go after this person who rigged an election, right? Go after this cartel. Go after George Soros, which they should and must do. George Soros and his organizations break so many laws. You want to talk about true foreign interference in our nation? That's where you start. That and criminal alien illegal voting, which of course Matt Gaetz is gonna. He don't got any more friends. He doesn't have any. He has a lot of friends, but he doesn't have any friends in D.C. This is the way that you break these systems. You break them from the top down. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's our full-throated endorsement of Matt Gaetz. This is, ladies and gentlemen, how it works. And this is why it's a genius move.